Every second your liver makes a choice: repair or decay, youth or age, vitality or decline. And most of us never even know it's happening. There is an organ inside you, roughly the size of a football, tucked beneath your ribcage on the right side, that performs over 500 distinct chemical operations every single day. We call it the liver, and for most of human history, we have thought of it primarily as a filter, a detoxifier, something that cleans our blood after we indulge in too much wine or fatty food. But this understanding, while not entirely wrong, misses something profound and far more consequential for how we age. The liver is not just a passive filter waiting to catch toxins like a net catches fish. It is an active, dynamic conductor orchestrating the entire metabolic symphony of your body, and the tempo it sets determines whether you move through life with energy and resilience or whether you gradually dim and decay. Consider what happens every time you eat. Food enters your digestive system, breaks down into its constituent parts, and those molecules enter your bloodstream. But your blood cannot simply carry raw fuel to your cells and hope for the best. There must be regulation, transformation, intelligent distribution. This is where the liver steps forward. It receives nutrients first, before almost any other organ, and it makes decisions. Should this glucose be released into the bloodstream for immediate energy, or should it be stored as glycogen for later? Should these fatty acids be packaged and sent to muscle tissue, or converted into ketones for the brain? Should this amino acid be used to build new proteins, or should it be transformed into glucose because blood sugar is running low? These are not trivial questions. They are the fundamental calculations that determine your metabolic state moment by moment. When your liver makes these decisions with precision and wisdom, your body hums with efficiency. Cells receive exactly what they need when they need it. Energy production remains stable. Hormones stay balanced. Inflammation remains low. This is metabolic youth, and it has nothing to do with the number of candles on your birthday cake. But when the liver becomes overwhelmed, sluggish, or damaged, its conducting begins to falter. It releases too much glucose into the bloodstream when you do not need it, creating wild swings in energy and mood. It struggles to package fats properly, allowing them to accumulate in places they should never be. It fails to produce adequate amounts of the proteins that regulate blood clotting, immune function, and hormone transport. The entire metabolic orchestra begins to play out of tune, and what we experience as aging is often this loss of metabolic coherence, this gradual descent into biological chaos. Your liver, in its quiet work beneath your ribs, is writing the score of your biological age with every metabolic decision it makes. There exists within your body a kind of metabolic intelligence that most of us never consciously experience, yet it shapes the very texture of our aging process. This intelligence is called metabolic flexibility, and it refers to your body's ability to seamlessly transition between different fuel sources depending on what is available and what is needed at any given moment. When you wake in the morning after a night of fasting, your body should be burning primarily fat for energy, preserving what little glucose remains for your brain and red blood cells. When you eat a meal rich in carbohydrates, your metabolism should shift gracefully to burning that glucose, storing the excess, and then returning to fat burning once digestion is complete. This dance between fuel sources, this elegant switching back and forth, is orchestrated almost entirely by your liver, and when it functions smoothly, your cells remain youthful and adaptive. Think of metabolic flexibility as a kind of cellular resilience. A young, healthy cell can thrive on fat, on glucose, on ketones, adjusting its machinery to extract energy from whatever substrate arrives. It does not become dependent on a single fuel source. It does not panic when circumstances change. This adaptability is itself a hallmark of youth, because aging at the cellular level is often a story of increasing rigidity, of systems that once bent now breaking, of processes that once flowed now stagnating. When your liver maintains its ability to regulate fuel switching with precision, it sends signals throughout your entire body that say, adapt, remain flexible, stay resilient. These signals influence gene expression in ways that preserve mitochondrial function, reduce oxidative stress, and maintain the quality control systems that clear damaged proteins and dysfunctional cellular components. But when metabolic flexibility is lost, something insidious begins to happen. The liver becomes locked into patterns of poor fuel management. Perhaps it constantly dumps glucose into the bloodstream even when cells are already saturated, creating a state of chronic energy excess that cells must somehow manage. Or perhaps it fails to efficiently mobilize fat stores during fasting periods, leaving the body unable to tap into its vast energy reserves and instead signaling a false state of scarcity. This metabolic stiffness creates a cascade of aging signals that ripple through every organ system. Cells that cannot efficiently switch fuels begin to accumulate damage. Mitochondria, those tiny powerhouses within each cell, become less efficient and produce more inflammatory byproducts. The cellular cleanup processes that depend on periods of fat burning, particularly autophagy, the process by which cells digest and recycle their own damaged components, become sluggish and incomplete. What we perceive as aging, the gradual loss of energy, the accumulation of stubborn body fat, the inflammation that settles into joints and arteries, the cognitive fog that clouds once sharp thinking, these are often manifestations of lost metabolic flexibility. Your liver has forgotten how to conduct the fuel switching symphony, and your cells, no longer receiving clear and varied metabolic signals, begin to behave like aging cells should, shutting down, protecting themselves, preparing for decline rather than renewal. When your liver becomes burdened with excess fat and metabolic stress, it begins to resist the signals of insulin, that crucial hormone responsible for ushering glucose out of your bloodstream and into your cells. This resistance does not remain localized to the liver alone. It spreads like a slow poison throughout your entire body, affecting muscle tissue, fat cells, even the delicate neurons in your brain. What begins as a liver problem becomes a whole-body metabolic crisis, and this crisis is one of the most powerful accelerators of biological aging we know. Insulin is far more than a blood sugar regulator. It is a master signal that tells cells whether to grow, repair, and thrive, or whether to shut down non-essential processes and enter a state of defensive dormancy. When insulin resistance takes hold, your cells stop listening to these signals properly. Your pancreas responds by producing more and more insulin, flooding your bloodstream with higher levels in a desperate attempt to achieve the same effect. This chronic elevation of insulin creates a metabolic environment that favors aging at almost every level. High insulin levels suppress the breakdown of stored fat, trapping energy in your adipose tissue and making weight loss nearly impossible. They promote inflammation throughout the cardiovascular system, accelerating the formation of arterial plaques. They interfere with growth hormone and other regenerative signals that normally peak during sleep and fasting. They disrupt the balance of sex hormones, contributing to everything from reproductive issues to loss of muscle mass. Perhaps most concerning, chronic hyperinsulinemia has been linked to accelerated cognitive decline and increased risk of neurodegenerative diseases, as the brain itself becomes insulin-resistant and loses its ability to properly fuel and maintain neurons. The liver, in failing to respond appropriately to insulin, essentially reprograms your entire endocrine system toward accelerated aging. Every organ downstream from this metabolic dysfunction pays a price, accumulating damage faster than it can repair, losing function year by year in a process that feels inevitable but is often rooted in this single upstream problem. When fat begins to accumulate within the liver itself, something remarkable and disturbing happens. This is not the inert storage tissue we imagine when we think of body fat tucked beneath our skin. This is ectopic fat, fat residing where it does not belong, and it behaves like a metabolically active organ unto itself. These fat droplets crowding liver cells release inflammatory molecules called cytokines, chemical messengers that travel through your bloodstream and every tissue in your body that something is wrong. This inflammation is not the acute, healing kind that follows an injury. It is chronic, low-grade, relentless, and it becomes the background condition against which all other biological processes must operate. A fatty liver struggles to perform its essential duties. It cannot efficiently clear used hormones from circulation, leading to imbalances in estrogen, testosterone, and thyroid function. It produces excessive amounts of triglycerides and harmful cholesterol particles that damage blood vessels. It releases glucose inappropriately, maintaining elevated blood sugar even during fasting. Each of these disruptions feeds back into the system, creating more insulin resistance, which drives more fat into the liver, which produces more inflammation. The cycle becomes self-perpetuating and self-amplifying. What makes this particularly insidious is how silent it remains. You cannot feel your liver accumulating fat. There is no pain, no obvious symptom in the early stages. Yet with each passing month, this hidden fat depot is sending aging signals throughout your body. Your skin ages faster as collagen breaks down under inflammatory stress. Your brain fog deepens as neuroinflammation takes hold. Your joints ache as systemic inflammation settles into cartilage. Your energy fades as mitochondria throughout your body respond to these danger signals by becoming more conservative, less willing to produce abundant energy. The fat in your liver is not merely stored energy waiting to be used. It is an active participant in your aging process, a biological clock ticking faster with each additional fat droplet that finds its way into hepatocytes. The liver possesses a quality that sets it apart from nearly every other organ in your body, a profound capacity for regeneration. Even when significantly damaged, even when burdened with years of metabolic stress and fat accumulation, the liver can restore itself if given the right conditions. This is not merely hopeful thinking or wishful biology. This is documented cellular reality. Liver cells can divide, replace damaged tissue, clear accumulated fat, and resume their intricate metabolic functions with remarkable fidelity to their original design. What this means for aging is profound, because if we can restore liver function, we can essentially reset many of the metabolic processes that drive biological aging throughout the entire body. The pathway to metabolic restoration begins with understanding what the liver needs to heal. It requires periods of rest from constant nutrient influx, time when it is not perpetually processing incoming food and can instead focus on repair and fat mobilization. This is where strategic eating patterns become powerful medicine. Extended periods between meals allow the liver to shift from storage mode to clearance mode, breaking down accumulated fat and releasing it for energy. Certain nutrients support this process directly: compounds that enhance mitochondrial function within liver cells, antioxidants that quench inflammatory signaling, amino acids that provide building blocks for new protein synthesis. When the liver begins to clear its fat burden and restore insulin sensitivity, the effects cascade throughout your entire physiology. Inflammatory markers drop. Hormone balance improves. Energy production becomes more efficient. The metabolic flexibility that defines cellular youth returns. Your biological age, measured not in years but in the functional capacity of your cells and organs, can actually reverse. This is not about superficial anti-aging interventions or cosmetic fixes. This is about addressing the root metabolic conductor and allowing your body's innate regenerative wisdom to express itself fully, restoring the metabolic coherence that defines true vitality regardless of how many years you have lived.